I call this meeting of the Hurst-Euless-Bedford Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. Good evening to everybody. Hope everyone had a chance to see the eclipse earlier today, and thank you for being here instead of watching the NCAA championship game, but we'll try to get through as soon as we can. Tonight, the Board of Trustees is meeting in a called work session board meeting. The board welcomes and appreciates comments and input from the community. Open forum is provided at each meeting to allow the public to address the board. There will be 2 open forums tonight. Open forum number 1 is to hear requests regarding agenda items only. Open forum number 2 is to hear requests or make comments regarding non-agenda items and will be heard at the end of the meeting. Those addressing the board are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes per meeting. The speaker should identify his or her name, group affiliation if any, and make a brief presentation with an identified solution if one is sought. Remarks should be addressed to the board as a whole. Oral presentations may not include charges against any employee or board member by name. It is my responsibility to determine if the person addressing the board has attempted to resolve a concern informally or through the district's complaint policies. If not, the speaker will be directed to follow the appropriate policy. The board requests that all presentations be made in a courteous, respectful, and professional manner and asks that speakers monitor their own behavior. If you wish to speak during one of the open forums, please fill out one of the cards located on the table in the entry hall. Dr. Harrington, any comments?
No comments at this time.
No clarifications?
No, sir.
All right, we're ready for open forum number 1. No cards. Then at this time, the board will adjourn into closed session. Pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551, the board will adjourn into closed session pursuant to Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.076. At this time, the board will reconvene into open session. Action item 6.01, consider approval of Director of Special Education for the 2024-25 school year.
I move the board approve Lilimar Benitez Berrios as the Director of Special Education.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve Lilimar Benitez Barrios as Director of Special Education. Please vote.
The first one always takes a long time.
And that motion passes. Congratulations, Ms. Barrios. We always like to give you an opportunity to stand up and introduce anyone you have with you here tonight.
Hi, so my husband Jose, my son, and my two kids, Joseph and Josue, and then my family from Puerto Rico is watching here. Hello, everyone. And then I have my other family.
All right, congratulations again. All right, we're ready for reports and presentation. Item 7.01, disbursements for the month of March 2024. Do we have any questions? 7.02, ELA interim assessment report. Dr. Norgard?
All right, good evening. I am bringing our second interim assessment in language arts to you this evening. Just as a reminder, as with most of the data that I'm bringing you, this is leading us towards meets and master's grade level goals in our strategic plan. And just a reminder for context, this is our first year using the TEA interim assessment, so we will know much more once we get to STAR and EOC. We will study our own alignment. Is this giving us better data than what we've received before? It's what our indications had all been from districts that went to interims a few years before us, but we will, of course, examine our own data. In some of the trend lines, you'll see a little dotted line because in the past, language arts didn't have reading and writing in every grade, but now starting on the interims, there's reading and writing everywhere. So if they've jumped from reading only 1 year, you'll see a dotted line in the chart. So the current grade level data, so we test grade 3 in English and Spanish, so these are our overall performances in approaches, meets, and masters. So as we look at charts, approaches will be purple, meets is blue, and masters is green. Since we don't have previous years to compare to, we're comparing ourselves right now to the region. This is what I brought to you with interim 1 and the math as well. So you can see that we are outperforming the region, and in particular, as you look at the whole pattern from grade 3 up through the grade 10 English 2, it very much follows what we see every year at the end of year when we look at gaps between our comparison districts. We tend to be closer at 3rd grade, just as things are starting, and the more years we have students, the bigger that gap gets. We pull away more from the region and the state with our performance until we get to English 2 and then kind of closes back down a little bit. So all of this follows our natural patterns. So we feel good and confident about the way our data is trending, but of course we will study it when we get all the way to the end of the year as well. So then in 4th grade, we have English and Spanish testers, but we're going to track that trend line on combined. We are outperforming the state as well, much more so in Spanish at grade 4. By the time we get to grade 5, we have very few students that are still testing reading in Spanish, because that's the last year of our current late exit bilingual model. That will change as we move towards our dual language. But for right now, usually our only students that are still testing in Spanish at 5th grade are likely newcomers that have recently moved. So they are certainly not ready to test in English, but frequently their Spanish performance may not be as strong either. They may be new to formal education as well. So that is one area where we see compared to the region, but they're rather small marks below the region. So we only had 29 students in the district that actually tested in Spanish. So of course we're watching those students, but we're not surprised by those data points. Then as we move into the middle grades, grades 6, 7, and 8, we're all testing in English, and we're double digits above the region in their performance on this interim. For 9 and 10, our EOC marks, we are also double digits everywhere other than that masters at English 2, which is, again, we're above. I'm not going to complain certainly about being 7 points above the region average. That's just where we start to see some of that gap closing back down again. So in looking at cohort data, so that purple line, that's the approaches. So you have to think about that, the lowest performance rate is at the top. So approaches are better, blue is the meets, and green is the masters. This is new data for us to look at and track. So we have drawn from third grade reading language arts last year to the 2 interims they've taken. You can see the interim 1 to interim 2 performance was fairly consistent. Those lines were pretty straight. So we will see when we have that STAR data to complete the track. But of course, our teachers are getting the data that they need. In language arts and in math, the interim starts off the same set of questions and then branches for our students. So it really lets teachers know, if I have a student that just gets 100 on everything, I don't know, did they actually have any gaps or should they have been pushed further? Or a student that misses everything, well, what did they know? And so by the branching nature of this test, it lets teachers really see, okay, they were struggling, but if I get them to this level or this type of questions, here's the point where they experience success. So there's a lot more beyond what you're seeing in these reports that our teachers can do for our students in using this data. So 5th grade, we see some climbs from interim 1 to interim 2 at both approaches, meets, and masters. We see the growth in 6th grade at all 3 of those performance thresholds from interim 1 to interim 2. Again, at 7th grade, so we're anxious to see that next data point with their 7th grade STAR. 8th grade looked a little bit more like 3rd grade, where they're just holding steady with that interim 1 performance. So we'll be watching to see how they perform when they get to their STAR exam. English 1, EOC, so stayed a little flat at masters, that green line, but continuing to grow from interim 1 to 2 at approaches and meets. And 10th grade, it is the masters, that green line at English 2 that we always see. We have done lots of studies with our teachers looking at data. Doesn't matter which tries they were in English. Were they a fall, winter, a winter, spring? And it just continues to defy a repeatable, distinguishable pattern of how we're getting there. But we continue to study it, and how can we do more? We are outperforming others, but just not to the same level we do in other areas. And so we know that there's more that we can do, and we continue to look at that English 2 masters. Any questions about our reading interim, reading language arts?
Now, Holly, last time I asked you, what schools in Region 11 are we compared to, or is it the entire region?
It is all those that tested within interim, and I will have to get with our coordinator of assessment to see if she has the full list of who participated. I just have the numbers, but I can see the total numbers within the region that tested, and it's more than 10 times our students per grade level, so it's a significant number of the districts. But I'm sorry, I'll have to check with assessment for the names.
Castleberry, Kennedale, Fort Worth is Fort Worth included in that Region 11?
They are part of Region 11. I don't know if they tested on interim. I can verify that with our. They have been? Okay.
No, I don't know if they are.
Okay. I will check with our assessment coordinator. She has an access of data that I do not in this review. Any other questions?
So Holly, and by no means in my question do I want to downplay the fact that almost all of those arrows are double digits and heading in the right direction. So hats off to your team and everybody involved, because I think it's phenomenal. Back to the 5th grade, those 29 students, is that like an anomaly, or was there, or because of the fact that they were all, you're right, Spanish, because they were all starting at the same time?
Those testing in Spanish. So if you'll see, our 5th graders testing in English are above. It's our 5th graders testing in Spanish that are below others testing in Spanish.
Got it. Thanks.
Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. You're going to be hearing from the EdOps team as we talk about our summer school programs to include enrichment and summer school. As you know, we made that transformation last year to summer school enrichment for our elementary schools. And so we're going to give you a little bit more information on how that looks. One thing you might notice tonight in our report is that we have consolidated our campuses in an attempt to reduce some cost in terms of transportation, but also really helping our kids get there a little bit more efficiently. So what I would say is you will hear Central come up quite a bit. We've run the numbers. We will be full, but we will not be over capacity. And and we always overestimate our numbers. If we feel like we might need to do a little overflow, we have something for that planned also at Keys. But we've run the numbers. I think we're going to be just fine. But you might see that, and that might be a question that comes up later. And I also just want to compliment our team, and then we'll talk about this briefly when I get to Kira's program. Continuing to outreach to our community, and as we've done in the past, as we begin to work with our 3 cities, we will let them know what summer programs we're doing, but we will also help publish and promote the summer programs each of our cities are doing. Because as you know, our big push for our younger kids is just get involved somewhere and be active and participating and engaged. So without further ado, I will bring up Dr. Holly Norgard again.
Okay, minimal changes compared to what we did last year. It is still tied around what we have been studying with that summer school effectiveness at elementary. You know, we made some changes last year. We are making another shift this year, and then we'll continue to look at our data and see how it's leading us. But based on the study of the effectiveness, sorry, I'm trying to be quick and I need to slow myself down just a second, is we will not be including current kinder and first grade students. It will be our current 2nd through 5th grade, rising 3rd through 6th grade students seem to be where we are able to have more of an impact and effect. So we will look at that. If they fall in a special category, such as our kindergartners with ELPS, they may be served in that way, but we are not including them in the enrichment portion of this summer. So rising 3rd through 6th grade this year is our target audience. Music, art, library, STEM, technology, and some teacher-developed STEM courses. We'll have a mix of in-person and virtual learning and how the technology is being integrated for each of those grade levels. This is very similar to what it has been since we have been through our COVID changing of learning environments.
Good evening. A little bit more about the elementary programs that we're going to have this summer. Excited to do elementary enrichment again this summer. It's going to be improved. We've made some changes, did some PDSA, and I think it's going to be a really great thing for our rising 3rd through 6th graders, like Dr. Norgard said. It is going to be June 3rd through June 18th. We are going to go Monday through Friday, not Monday through Thursday, just because it's only 12 days. We want to get as much as we can out of that. It's a half-day program, and it's going to be at Harrison Lane Elementary. We're projecting about 400 students total in those grade levels, or roughly 100 per grade level. Of course, we will provide transportation. The summer dining will be included. Harrison Lane will be a summer dining location, and there will be no cost to our elementary students. Our Elementary Language Enrichment Academy will run, they'll be in with our enrichment students, but there will be a language component for our emerging bilingual students. So the dates are the same, location, everything's the same. They will be integrated with our fluent English speakers, but they'll have a component of their day that is especially dedicated to language enrichment. And then, of course, we'll have our Early Language Proficiency, or ELP, summer school. This is a legislative compliance piece that we do 120 hours. So we did adjust our dates and times somewhat. We found out we cannot count any time on the bus or lunchtime or recess or anything like that. So those kiddos will go a little bit longer, which is a good thing for our kids. That will be at Oakwood Terrace Elementary, and we're projecting about 160 per grade level, and numbers are coming in strong so far. We're also doing registration earlier this year, and hoping to get our families locked in sooner and have a plan so that we staff appropriately, so we're very efficient with our staffing and we don't hire too many people. We get just the right amount of people that we need. And I will turn it over to Dr. Brandon Johnson.
Good evening. So for secondary programs, we start with course recovery. And notice that this is a little bit of a change because we've previously called it credit recovery, but they're really not recovering credits in 7th and 8th grade. So we shifted that name, and so we have course recovery. If you remember, HB 1416 was the cleanup bill for HB 4545. And while we still are required to meet accelerated instruction requirements, this will satisfy the new cleanup bill, HB 1416. So for 7th and 8th grade course recovery, we have transportation provided, summer dining is included, and we have a $35 registration fee and then $125 course fee. These are for kids that didn't meet promotion standards. All 4 contents are available, and we have 2 sessions, one in June and then one that stems into July, and 9 sessions per day, and we have 3.5 hours per kid, and that's at Central Junior High. Moving next, we have 9 through 12 credit recovery, and this is online, so there's no transportation needed, no summer dining. We still have the same registration and course fee. And these are for kids that didn't pass specific courses, and they use Edgenuity. The sessions are the same, but because it's online, students can also work through that student holiday on June 19th and the student holiday on July 4th if they so choose. And we project 300 students for this segment.
So do we provide technology and internet and stuff?
Yes, so students will keep their technology from the end of the year, and they will take it into the summer and be able to use it for that. So 9 through 12 credit advancement. This is for kids that are seeking to add course credits, and they can achieve a maximum of one full course. No transportation, no summer dining, but the fees still remain the same. It's online only. The same sessions, 9 days per session, and we project 120 to 200 students. And then next, we also have our EOC intervention. This also satisfies HB 1416. These are for kids that are retaking EOC exams in biology, algebra 1, English 2, and U.S. history. We provide transportation, summer dining is included, and it's no cost because we really got to get these kids across the finish line for graduation. It'll be from June 3rd through the 14th, so those dates are slightly different, and we have testing on the 17th, 18th, and 20th. So 10 days, 3 hours per subject, and we expect to have 470 students. And for Secondary Language Academy, this is for kids in grades 6 through 12 needing additional language development, and they will focus on language acquisition. The same sessions in June and July. They'll achieve 18 days per session. There is transportation provided, and summer dining is included, and it's no cost to students because we really want them to take advantage of this opportunity, and we project enrollment of 140 students. And so I will turn it over to Mr. Streeter again.
Thank you, sir. Also, just as a reminder, this will be the last year that we can use ESSER funds to help offset the cost for summer school. And if you look back over a historical perspective, our numbers are coming more back in line with pre-pandemic and COVID. So if they seem a little lower, they're actually historically right on par. We just, as you remember, had high numbers a few years ago. So just very quickly through some of our special program areas. Our extended school year, we will also be servicing our students, and they're going to be going to Bell Manor Elementary. We have 60 students that are projected, and that is for 14 days. And of course, that's always determined by the student's ARD and IEP. And of course, we cover transportation and summer dining in almost all of these, and there is no cost to kids. For our gifted and talented and highly capable students, it's for 5 days. They also will be at Bell Manor. We have about 100 kids that we think we're going to have. There is a fee for this one, and we usually have a great turnout for this program. And again, supporting our GT and highly capable kids is really important as we move forward. When you look at our Invention Project Middle School, that's for grades 7 and 8, and that's our GT and highly qualified students also, and it's in Richmond, and it's for 4 days. It's in mid to late July. That'll be at Central Junior High, but again, most of the programs will be over when this program starts, and we'll have 50 kids in that we anticipate. And there is a fee, but we include dining and food. Our IB Summer Academy, that's for our 10th and 11th graders. If you remember, they're trying to maximize credits for their IB schedule. This is pretty popular with our kids. We have a pretty nominal fee of $30. We provide not transportation, but food. And that's for 5 to 8 days, and it's 4 hours per course, and that's about 150 students. And so this is really important for our IB kids. They take advantage of this every single year. And for our superintendent scholars, we have for ninth graders, that's how they did on their 8th and 9th grade PSAT. That's for the National Merit Scholar Potential, which is, again, something that we really want to continue to grow and improve in. That'll be for 8 days. That will also be at Central Junior High for a couple of hours each day. There is a morning and afternoon session, and we will have 150 kids approximately for that. And again, no cost. They must transport themselves, though. Our superintendent's merit scholars, which that is determined by the PSAT and NMSQT, which is the National Merit Qualifying Test. This is for National Merit Potential also. These dates go through June through October. It depends on the student's schedule, and we'll be doing that with the Karen Dillard College Prep, and we have approximately 60 students. And remember, there is a fee, but some of that money is returned to them upon completion. Global initiatives for Chinese and Arabic language learning, grades 5 to 10 this year. It's for our International Business Initiative languages. This is a little bit earlier, May 28 through 31 and June 3 through 6. It's 8 days for 3 hours, and again, if you notice, that's Central Junior High, but these kids will be finished up before anyone else arrives, and we have about 50 kids for that program. STEM and summer reading. Kira's been really working diligently to try and expand this, and she's done a few things that look a little different this year. I believe we sent you those flyers in your Friday update, but I'll review those again. So obviously we have our summer reading, HEB Reads, and that's all summer long from May 11th, which is the kickoff, until July 31st. And again, a reminder from 10 to 1 at Pennington Field on May 11th. Let's hope for really beautiful weather again. Mars Rover Expedition, Texas Workforce Grant. If you notice, we almost got $100,000 for that, and that's just because of great leadership on Kira's part and working very closely. And what's important is she has to spend those dollars very carefully, but you also want to spend every penny so that we can get it again, and so she's done that very well. Robotics, drones, rockets, you all have seen pictures of this. It's just a fantastic program. We have about 100 kids, 5 days for each camp, and it's 6 hours a day, and there'll be about 50 kids per one, and we include transportation and dining, and there is no fee. Bell Flight, this is new this year, and this is in coordination with our one of our community partners, and they are helping fund this, and they're actually supplying some of the personnel to come in and do this. So we're going to be targeting 6th and 7th grade this year. This is a pilot. If it goes really well, we'll look to expand it next year. It's based on STEAM, project problem-based learning. It's for a week. They will culminate at the Perot Museum for a major field trip, but that is all paid for. It's 5 days. It's all day. It'll be at Central Junior High, and we're targeting 30 young ladies at the moment, and we will see where we are. If we end up with higher numbers, we have an opportunity maybe to double that, but we'll just kind of see where we are because it's our first year. We are super excited for the partnership. And then Design, Connect, and Create, they're the ones who are going to actually help facilitate the camp, but we're using our teachers. And so if you have any questions, please let me know on that afterwards. And then Take and Make Tuesdays, a little bit different this year. These are our STEM kits to go. We'll be doing that for almost 8 weeks. And we're going to do 3 locations, and they're 30 minutes per stop. But if you notice, we're going to go where the kids are. And where is that in the summer? Aquatic Center, Splash Center, and Euless Family Life Center. So this will be exciting to see what we're doing. But the other nice thing about this is this just targets kids all over the Tri-City area where we are. And so I'm anxious to see how we do. We won't know until we do it, and we'll PDSA it afterwards. And then finally, any questions that I can address or anyone from our team?
Any questions on the summer school?
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Streeter. All right, 7.04, potential purchase of box truck report. Mr. Kerbo.
All right, thank you for the opportunity to present this. I was asked to give a report on our usage of box trucks and where our needs are. So with that, I can give you that. Historic usage from 2017 through year-to-date of 2024. These are box trucks, and all you've known. You've been involved with kids and band and athletics and all that. You know what a box truck is, but for those who may be viewing online, give you an idea of what it is we're talking about. These are the typical box trucks that are used in these activities. Our primary users are the virtual and performing arts groups, the band, UIL One Act Play, and athletics are the ones that are using the trucks for the most part. So band, they use them to transport instruments and equipment back and forth from their respective campuses to wherever they need to be, whether it's Pennington or an out-of-town game, and they do it quite frequently. They also use them to store instruments and equipment periodically on an as-needed basis, so it does have a little bit of different utilization to it. We use these during the fall from August to November for long-term rental needs during football and marching season for as far as they march or advance in marching or the various contests and competitions that are in play during the fall. Also use them for any planned trips. I know they had a spring trip to Indianapolis, I think, last year, and so that created another need. UIL play is that's done in the spring, and it's on as they advance. They need it, and they need those big old sets that they have to haul. And these have lift gates. We're going to talk a little bit more about the types of trucks that we're using later. So athletics, their usage is a lot less, but nonetheless, it's vital because of the athletic training equipment that they have to haul back and forth. And it's during football season only, and usually just on game night. So they'll pick it up that day, transport it, and they either return it that day or early the next morning. So the length of the rental is not as extensive. The types of box trucks that we use for VPA, we use 3 per campus, or 6 total. And these are usually, like I say, we have long-term rentals, 26 or 28-foot box trucks. They've got a lot of equipment. And they have lift gates so that they safely load and unload the equipment and move it into position. Now, there's several ways you can accomplish getting your equipment moved and so forth. So you've seen these, moving van, 53-foot trailers that they have, decorated with their band's logo, and usually it's one. Some schools have more than one, but mostly it's one, and that's a way to do that. And what this district, and I don't know if that's been something under consideration here in the past, but that's a nice showcase to have it out in front of your campus for everybody to see and so forth. But one of the downsides to that is if you get a trailer like that, then you've got to pay someone to haul it. So it comes with transport fees, contracting with a company to come in, because generally there's no consistent supply of a tractor or a driver that's available to drive at each of these events. So we've chosen to use smaller vehicles, more of them, and to be able to utilize drivers that are part of our staff and so forth. Athletics, they use 1 per campus, or 2 total. And like I say, it's a 12 or 14-foot box truck if they can get a 14-footer, or if they can get a 12-footer. Again, on game nights, and then they either have a lift gate or an optional ramp. You've seen those. I'm kind of scared of those ramps because you have to ram those up in that little section underneath there. If you get your fingers caught, you're shy a few fingers. So we're to continue our discussion about how we're used. Again, One Act Play uses them during the spring on an as-needed basis. And choral departments also have several performances that require props to be moved and transported on, not very often or not very much, but it is a need that can be solved with this. And then, of course, graduation ceremonies. When we're going over to the arena to graduate, they haul whatever equipment is needed and instruments, so forth. Athletics, again, athletic equipment on game nights only, and the types of ramps or lift gates that they need to get them on there. Here's a 7-year history of the cost of rentals just for our VPA, and as you can see, it was averaging somewhere between just under $50,000 a year for the first 3 years. Then pandemic hit, and then our usage dwindled and almost was non-existent in the 2021 school year. The following year, you see that highlighted in yellow. That's when we hit the bid threshold that required us to issue a bid, because we hit that magic $50,000 threshold. And so we issued a bid. We've been finding it difficult to get people to respond to that. So our costs for the following 2 years, $54,253, as you see, last year, and then year to date, we're just under $40,000. So 7 years for VPA spent $288,300.91. Athletics is, the cost there is not as great as you might suspect. But as you know, the law requires us to look at things in aggregate. So whether it's box truck rental for VPA or for athletics or one-act play or choir, doesn't matter. It's box truck rental. So we have to treat it as a single category of purchase. So that's why these are lumped in here together. So one other thing to note here is that historical costs that we've shown here aren't really complete because a lot of these were paid for through our credit cards or procurement cards that the campuses have, and those just aren't reported to who the merchant is that we've purchased them from. So we're not able to get that detail. So I suspect a good bit of these, or this dollar amount would exceed $300,000 easily. So what's the cost? Rental versus purchasing. The sourcing of vendors or trucks has been difficult, like I said, and there's a list of some traditional rental vendors for trucks, and I've got U-Haul and MHC truck leasing listed there with asterisk and in italicized. And the U-Haul is where we get our trucks for athletics because they're easy to get and they can pick them up and it's convenient to their location. MHC is where our VPA trucks have been leased from historically. But as I said before, it's been difficult to get vendors to respond to our solicitations because of the requirements that they have to commit to or have to agree to. When we didn't have to put a formal bid out, it was a little easier to secure box trucks, but that is no longer. So to meet the needs, the current needs that we have, this would be what it is for LD Bell VPA, 3 box trucks at either 26 or 28 feet with a lift gate. Athletics would need 1, a 12 or 14 foot. The lift gate's optional. We'd have to confirm that as to what their preferred means for loading or a device to load it with. And the same thing with Trinity. I will say 28-foot box trucks are difficult to get now. They're just not making them in that size anymore. So 26 is probably what we would have to settle in on, and likewise with 14-foot box trucks. So here's a budget. This is just a budget table of what it would cost us for these various sizes there, and you can see there the unit prices are provided for you. If we were to if you wanted to consider all forms or all combinations of purchases, 6 26-foot trucks and 2 12-foot trucks would be $760,000 investment. 28-foot trucks and 2 12-foots, $880,000, and you can see the rest there. The maximum amount, if we were to get 6 28-foot trucks and 2 14-foot trucks, would be $890,000. So other things to consider. Trucks, purchase versus rental. Trucks that we own will always be available for HEB ISD use. We've had several reservations that have been rented out from under us because we'd show up on a day of a game at 7 o'clock in the morning. We had a need, and they rented the truck to somebody else. So that's happened on more than one occasion. So fortunately, we were able to overcome that, but we can't always guarantee that we'll be able to do that. Our mechanics and technicians will perform all the needed repairs and maintenance on the vehicles. Drivers that are will be driving the truck will be covered by our district's insurance as an employee. There will be additional costs to insure, adding the number of trucks to
But that's
your
one of
fleet.
my questions is these trucks typically aren't driven by employees now. So, if we go and rent a truck, it's usually, if like the band's going to Indianapolis, there's like 4 dads who hop in the 2 cabs and they take off and they drive. So they're not employees. So how would that affect if
I'd
we own these
recommend we
trucks?
come up with a policy to address either requesting a waiver that the drivers would sign, or we figure out a way to have them covered under our insurance.
Yes, if I may, several of our drivers, excuse me, didn't know you were gonna call me.
Hey, I saw you there.
Sorry, several of our drivers have their Class A, so might be something to consider using our department for this. And several others would be motivated to get theirs as well, so.
Yeah, it's just,
Wanted to throw
you
that
know,
out there.
that's another expense if we use employees and we have kids going for a week to another state, you know, those employees have to wait and stay and be in hotels and, you know.
Let me take my turn. We can get our, we'll have to talk to our insurance company, because some allow that, some don't. Some discourage it, you know, people outside the school district, but we can talk to our insurance company and see what kind of criteria they have, because it can be done with somebody outside the school district, and they still insure everything.
Yeah.
They're just not our driver. They may have to do a background license check, some kind of deal like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure how we did it now, if we just bought full coverage through the rental company that we're renting them from, or how we're doing it.
Team, I have two questions. Are these new vehicles, and I've seen us do amazing things with buses. What's the life expectancy of these vehicles?
Well, yeah, there would be new vehicles. We could explore used, but the used market for these it's usually high mileage, and I wouldn't recommend that for, these are gonna be on the road. We don't run the risk of them breaking down with a truckload of band equipment. The usage is, that would be pretty light usage in the grand scheme of things, because of the number of miles per vehicle each year would not be like it was if you were using it at the warehouse to transport equipment, where you're using them every day on, even long-term routes or hot shots. So we would probably be able to easily get 10 or 15 years out of these.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we'd have to get 15 years for it to break even.
Exactly. So, just one other item, that these would be available for use internally if there was a need for it. If, let's say, we had a truck or two broke down in the warehouse, and we'd have a need to move equipment or use it for operations that day, we could do that. If their equipment moves, or when we relocate furniture at some point during the school, or we're getting ready to rebuild 4 elementary schools, I'm sure there's going to be a need for that. So these could be used in those ways too, in addition to what the intended purchase would be for this. And with that, any other questions?
Have we thought about where these would, where they would be parked when they're not in use? Is there room at the ASF?
That's not something that I've explored, but I'm sure we could find a place for them. Most of the times, they've been, they stay at the campuses or at Pennington Field.
Yeah, but the
at this point.
campuses are going to be,
Construction.
yeah, very tight on space.
We could certainly find a place for them. I think Josh is going to come up with a solution for us.
We have space at the ASF. We can make room for that, for sure, yes.
One other piece, so over the last couple of months, we've heard reports on our buses, we heard reports on the White Fleet, and now we're hearing a report on the box trucks. And so what has not come yet is a recommendation. And so that's what we're going to be working on, is to bring you a recommendation on, because those were all large purchases. And so that's what we're going to be bringing, is a recommendation on buses, White Fleet, and box trucks.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you. All right. Review of monthly regular board agenda items. Financial statements for the month of February 2024. Mr. Williams?
Good evening. So we're going to be looking at the financial statements for month ending February 29th, leap day, 2024. So the general fund, we had a fund balance of $226,138,508. That represents revenues over expenditures in the amount of $54,942,859. Of interest, interestingly, investment interest revenue for this reporting period was $3,485,925 compared to $2,301,539 for the same reporting period last year. So we continue to do really well with interest rates where they are in today's market. So as of February 29th, we were at 48.34%, and we're basically halfway through our year, so we're in good shape there. So the fund balance is performing as expected. The general fund matrix, the payroll is $87,649,399. That's our highest expenditure, obviously, and it's currently at 84%. Of course, you know, by the end of the year, we will level out around 87, 88% for the year. Utilities in the amount of $2,185,468. We're at 2%, and then the third highest expense, instructional supplies, we're at $1,513,964, or 1%. Child Nutrition Fund balance of $8,030,833. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $1,467,473. That department continues to do well, and we finally got to a normal amount of turnover and unfilled openings in that department. So Mary Ellis doing a good job. Total expenditures as of February 29th were at 42.38%. So that budget is doing well. Debt service fund balance of $60,412,230. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $38,876,009. Of course, debt services, most of our tax collections have come in by the end of February, but we'll keep collecting more as the year goes. But as of the end of February, we're already at 100.94% of what we budgeted. Of course, some of that, we're going to generate some overages, which we've talked about. We did last year. We did a defeasance. We talked about the possibility or needing to do one this year, but what we're going to end up doing in lieu of a defeasance is they've scheduled a August payment on our 2024 bond on interest to pay that interest that's going to be accrued by then. So we'll be able to use those excess funds to do that instead of a defeasance, which will be a little bit easier and less expensive because we don't have to go through the costs of doing the defeasance. And we've made our February payment, and of course we will make the August payment when that comes due, which will be, once we get those numbers, it'll be a little bit more than that $29,838 because we'll add that interest expense on there. So, but that fund is right where it's supposed to be. CK Pre-K Fund, that one has a fund balance of $533,585. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $344,109. As of the reporting period, they'd received 77.77% of their budgeted revenues. As of the end of February, they were at 42.19% of their budget, so they're right on track. Special revenue funds, those funds, as of the end of February, we're at 37.13, and of course, we're always lagging behind on those revenues because of having to get reimbursed from the grant funds on those funds. So, but all those programs are tracking as expected. Campus activity funds, fund balance of $3,364,553. That's revenues over expenditures in the amount of $33,270. For February, those revenues increased by $127,000, but expenditures increased by more. So as I said last month, they're spending a little more than they're taking in towards the end of the year, which is very normal. So those funds are performing as expected. 2018 bond, this will go away one day. When we get that last invoice and finally pay it, then we will close out this fund. But there are things on order. We just haven't received all the invoices and paid them yet. But once that happens, this fund will be done away with, and you won't see it on this report anymore. So that may be hopefully in the next month or two. Of course, you know what those funds were used for on the remainder of half of Bel Air, and that's that on that fund. The 2024 bond fund, of course, that has expenditures over revenues in the amount of $4,291,384. Those expenditures obviously exceed the revenues. The first issue of the sale for this fund took place on February 29th, the last day of February. So they don't, it doesn't show up on here yet. That'll show up in the coming months. Those revenues, the bond sale was $600 million. And then when it was finalized and closed on March 27th, we received all those funds, and they are currently invested, earning interest. All those accumulated costs, soft costs for architectural, engineering, et cetera, as well as the bond-related capital expenditure costs that are eligible for reimbursement, because we did a reimbursement resolution as part of our bond, those will be paid from these bond funds. So we'll be reimbursing our locally defined fund for some of those purchases we made. And lastly, we have the locally defined capital projects fund, fund balance of $22,846,559. That's expenditures over revenues in the amount of $24,496,196. Those funds are, of course, transferred at the discretion of the school board. As I just mentioned, we will be reimbursing this fund for some of those funds we did related to the bond projects. They're currently being used for Bel Air Elementary rebuild and different purchases that the board has previously approved. And then any new projects we decide to bring, which we just talked about, buses, and probably what we're going to be bringing is something to do those purchases out of the locally defined fund, because that's going to be an ongoing thing, and it's hard to get vehicles. So rather than trying to keep, we're going to do it out of this fund so it can roll every year, most likely. So that's probably what you'll be seeing coming to you for that. And that's it, unless you have some questions.
Any questions on the financial statements? All right, 8.02, budget transfer and amendment request for April 2024.
These are very minimal this month. Nothing out of the ordinary. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Any questions on the transfer amendment? 8.03, quarterly investment report for the quarter ending February 2024. Is that just for questions?
Any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Our still earning right around 4.5% in the aggregate, I think. So still doing pretty well.
All right, item 8.04, accountability resolution.
Yes, this came to us from our membership in the Texas School Alliance. So we are not a member of the lawsuit against TEA on accountability. And so just as a quick reminder, the driving force in that lawsuit is the CCMR College Career Military Readiness standards were changed without the required amount of notification. Honestly, even if the required amount of notification was provided, those measures are measured from a graduating class from the year before also. So the group is still gone regardless. So we had chose not to become part of that lawsuit, but the Texas School Alliance asked the districts that were not in the lawsuit if they would, if their board would consider a resolution in support of that. The latest what I have found, and if we have any other information, is, the original court date was in February. It got extended to April, and I believe that's where we're still at right now. So this resolution asks for, to commit our support in pursuing action to ensure the rating system provides fair, transparent, effective system for assigning performance ratings to school districts based on consistent measures, methods, and procedures. Oppose Commissioners' retroactive and drastic mid-year change to the measures, methods, and procedures used for 2022-2023 school year performance ratings. Stand in support of a rating system adhering to Texas state law as passed by the Texas legislature, and stand in support of efforts to reform accountability rating system to one that uses multiple effective school measures for all grade levels and a more holistic approach to assign the ratings of a campus and the performance of each student in lieu of relying heavily on one standardized test. So that is what they have asked us to consider.
All right, so that's up for consideration. It's not an agenda, or it's not an action item tonight, but the board has an opportunity if anyone would like to speak to it or have any questions to discuss. All right, hearing none. We'll move down to 8.05, instructional material allotment, TEAC certification for 2024-2025 school year. Were there any questions on this? All right, 8.06, replacement of administrative devices. So that's computer devices. So I know Dr. Hopkins is here in case we have any questions on this. Any questions? All right, replacement of Chromebooks. Any questions? 8.08, replacement of student devices. Any questions? And 8.09, purchase of network firewall replacement.
Good evening. So Mr. Forster and I are here tonight. The next 3 items on the agenda are using bond funds to replace integral parts of our data system and our servers. So we are here to answer any questions you might have about these large purchases.
And these are 2023 bonds, right?
This is 2023 bonds, not 2018.
All right, any questions on these purchases? It's a lot of technology.
We're very excited to have bond funds to spend.
All right, thank you. I don't think there's any
Thank you.
questions. Item 8.012, RFP 24-03, replacement of cafeteria tables at 4 elementary campuses. Were there any questions for Mr. Curbo?
The only question I had is, do we have a good understanding of the other schools that still need replacement cafeteria tables?
These are the only ones that were in need, other than the ones that are going to be renovated, the replacement campuses that I'm aware of.
Darla, are we good, or have we already replaced? I know we had talked before, I think maybe Donna Park. It was Hurst-Hills, and so we've got that. That's going to be replaced in the construction. It was replaced. Very good.
I'd like to thank the district, because I'm the one that brought this up earlier about using their school funds for cafeteria tables, so I appreciate you following through, Dr. Farrington.
All right. Item 8.13, RFQ 24-05, investment advisory services.
So as you know, we've had the bond election, and with that comes the need to look into how we're investing our securities of sorts. And it's been a long time since this district has gone out for a selection process. So Mr. Williams asked if we had put together an RFQ to go out and find qualified vendors to see. And we did get 3 good responses from 3 good vendors, and we got 1 lousy response from a vendor that wasn't qualified to do that. So, but we had interviews in here last Friday, and well, that's another story. Catch me on the side, and I'll tell you about it. So we had interviews in here, and we learned a lot from 3 top investment advisory service firms. And after we conducted the interviews and all of our evaluators got together, we decided that to recommend a change from our current investment advisory service group to Hilltop Securities, as detailed in the agenda item.
All right, any questions? Okay, item 8.14, interlocal agreement with Goodbye Purchasing Cooperative.
This is another interlocal agreement that our purchasing cooperative that we can join, and at no cost to the district, but there's some contracts that are available that will just give us many more options to purchase, so that's the recommendation.
So this is a new one to the district, not a renewal?
I'm sorry?
This is a new co-op to the district?
Yes, this is out of Region 2, out of Corpus Christi, so I may have to take a trip down there to take care of something. No, I'm just kidding. We have to go to Corpus Christi.
All right, 8.15, annual fire inspections.
Yes, this is another the annual fire inspections of all of our hoods and sprinkler systems and so forth. And the quote for this was $110,600 for actual facilities, and we're asking to approve and not to exceed amount of $115,600 for any other properties that we may need to inspect and that we're not in possession of now.
All right, any questions on fire inspections? Okay, the administration has pulled item 8.16, so we'll go down to 8.17, contract between HEB, ISD, and Communities and Schools, CIS of Greater Tarrant County. Mr. Streeter?
Yes, sir. If you recall, I gave a pretty detailed report in the Friday update. I just wanted to be here to answer any questions. Just a quick reminder that we've used ESSER funds for the past 3 years. However, we've kept a line item budget for CIS, and so we'll be supporting 8 schools next year, 5 elementary and 2 junior high and Keys, as well as supporting our 2 high schools with some high needs and crisis counseling. But beyond that, may I address any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're ready for our action items. 9.01, consider approval of donations for the April regular board meeting presentation of certificates of appreciation. If there's no questions, I'll accept the motion.
I move that the board approve the April 2024 donations as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the April 2024 donations as presented. Please vote.
I think you're waiting on me. Just look me off. I'm a yes.
All right, that motion passes. 9.02, consider approval of safety and security office renovations. Mr. Kerbo?
Well, as you know, the Safety and Security Office was relocated to the Pat May Center, and the space that they had was just not conducive for the work that they needed to do there. So we needed to renovate this, and the best method available to us was using our managed job order contract method. And so we submitted this to our contract manager, and he priced it out. And so the recommendation is that the board approve this in the amount of $213,470.55 to Freedom Construction under the job order contract managed program.
All right, any questions? I'll accept the motion.
I move the board approve the award of the Safety and Security Office renovations to Freedom Construction under Sourcewell EZI-QC, contract number TXNTGC 101619 FRC as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve and award the award of the Safety and Security Office renovations to Freedom Construction under Sourcewell EZI-QC, contract number TXNTGC 101619 FRC as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. All right, 9.03, consider approval of update to 2024-2025 staffing table, new units. Ms. Tuttle.
All right, so we are coming to you with a request for one teacher in special ed, a 50% physical therapist, and a 0.25 additional occupational therapist to add to an existing unit. I know you're aware, and I know that Mrs. Reek has had the opportunity in the past to share with you the changing numbers that we continue to experience. But because we just approved new units and yet we're still needing to come back to you for more, we've asked Ms. Reek to give you an update on where we are in special ed and a little bit of context as to why we continue to need to ask you for additional units.
Okay, how are you this evening? A little bit of an update. Every Monday we have our PEMS update, and today special education is at 14.7% in the district. That is a full percentage point from last year. We were at 13.6 this very same week last year. That represents 251 students. Our FOSSI program is very popular. I have parents tell me frequently that they moved to this area for our FOSSI program. And at this very moment, we are looking at 14 sixth graders moving up to junior high. And at the moment, some of these kids have not had ARDS. Some of these kids have question marks next to them. But our prediction at the moment is 58 of our ECSE 4-year-olds will be in FOSSI next year. So we had about 50% turnover in our teachers last year. And we're keeping a pulse on those numbers, but it's those students, we have to have a pretty small ratio for us to educate them and educate them effectively. Any questions or anything more you want to know about that?
Any questions from the board? All
Okay.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Consider approval of 2024-2025 salary schedule.
Wait, we need to
Oh,
vote.
sorry.
I move the board approve the new units as submitted.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the new units as submitted.
Nothing.
He's good. He said not. He seconded.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, I got it.
And that motion passes. Okay, now 9.04, consider approval of 2024-2025 salary schedule.
Okay, you have presented to you the 24-25 salary schedule that it incorporates the 2% raise that the board so graciously approved last meeting. Of course, this is a big impact to the budget, which is why I present it. But if Ms. Tuttle is here also, if you have any questions or anything, she'll be happy to answer those if I can. So,
All right, any questions on the salary schedule? I'll accept a motion.
I move the board approve the 2024-2025 salary schedule, which includes a 2% raise that was presented and approved on the March 25th, 2024 board meeting as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the 2024-2025 salary schedule, which includes a 2% raise that was presented and approved at the March 25th, 2024 board meeting as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. And now we will consider the 2024-2025 schedule for supplemental duty pay.
okay, this goes right along with the salary schedules for supplemental duty pay. The 2% will also impact some of those pay rates as well. So.
Was that the primary, there weren't any other moves to,
That may be,
and every once in a while we make moves to, for market conditions and things like that.
So the, no other moves as far as market conditions on our supplemental duty, but it does include all of the additional stipends that were reviewed with each of you in your meetings.
Okay, any questions? I'll accept a motion.
I move the board approve the 2024-2025 schedule of supplemental duty pay as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the 2024-2025 schedule for supplemental duty pay as presented. Please vote. And that motion passes. We're ready for open forum number 2. All right, Troy Amison? Yes, sir.
I'm pretty sure y'all can hear me, but,
Yeah, if you'll come up here,
apologize.
it helps with the recording, and they're gonna put 3 minutes for you up on the screen, so you'll know exactly where
Okay,
you are.
well, I've never done anything like this in my life, and all these slick presentations haven't done anything to alleviate my nerves. I'm also not trying to be adversarial here, but it's hard to say how disappointed you are that you don't think people are caring enough or that they're doing things that they could or should be doing in a nice way. So please, if there's something that we can discuss, that'd be great. I'm talking about HB 3, which is armed security on every campus, which y'all are not in compliance with at this time. I originally approached the school in September. I was directed to y'all's head guy in charge. After some delay, he finally got back with me and informed me that y'all have one plan. There were plans that you could have had been in compliance at the start of the year. Y'all chose to not enact any of those plans. You had one plan, and at the time, this was in September, he said he intended to be in compliance. He intended to have armed security at every school in a couple of months. I gave him until school break in December, so more than that. Here we are now, halfway through the school year. Y'all aren't in compliance, and I have gotten pretty good information that under your current plan, you're not going to be compliant for the next 2 to 3 years. 2 to 3 years that kindergarten kids are not going to be protected because of y'all's choice. And the problem with that is, of course, that there are things that you could be doing today. There's things that you could call in tomorrow, and Tuesday could be in effect that would make things better. And none of that is happening. And the 2 to 3 years is assuming that none of those officers that are already old and retired once are going to retire again. So pretty unsatisfied at this time. You said earlier that I was supposed to give you some solutions. Again, a solution that could be in effect Tuesday. When this year started, y'all had at least 8, maybe more, full-time officers at your junior highs and high schools. Those officers could be put Tuesday. They could be used just like air marshals. They could show up at a different school every day over the city. That would mean that every school would have coverage at least every 4th day. A little bit better than that, but every 4th day at least. With the few officers that you have brought on extra, it would be better than that. I'm just curious, an open question, and I got 1 second here if y'all are going to kick me out of here. An open question, and you don't have to answer it. Every police district in the city has cars that are either decommissioned, they're on reserve, whatever. I'm curious what those police chiefs said when you asked, hey, can we just park a police car in front of our schools? Did they just turn you down flat, or did they make excuses, or probably that question was never asked. All of the police in the city
Yes, sir.
are patrolling, they have to do reports every day.
Yeah, we understand.
Did y'all ask them, could you do those reports while you're sitting in the parking lot at the school? There's things that could be enacted Tuesday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Any discussion or
We
anything?
can't have discussion on,
With me?
well, we can't have discussion in an open forum, so it's not an agenda item. All right, we are ready to adjourn to closed session. I just wanted to make a quick announcement. I see a lot of people here who are applicants for our empty school board seat. Just want to let you know we are planning on using this time in closed session to discuss applications and come up with a list of finalists. But we will not be coming out and announcing that tonight. So there's no need to, stick around and see if we come in and tell you anything. Just wanted to let you know that so no one was waiting and disappointed. But we will be notifying the finalists here in the next week, or probably 3 or 4 days, and let you know where you stand. So thank you very much, and we were going to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551. The board will adjourn to closed session pursuant to Section 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, and 551.076. All right, 13.02, review of the board activity chart. The only thing that I noticed didn't have any coverage was the lead meetings.
Oh, I go to those.
Yeah, I knew that you usually did, so I don't know if you want to,
Let me take a look at that.
so that is now covered.
Sure.
All right, 13.03, discuss board goal number 3, advocacy. Ms. Wells and Mr. Campos.
One thing I would want to just do is a pulse check of activity that we've done with our assigned legislators. And I know on the board activity chart, I saw that there was a meeting. Do you want to just kind of briefly discuss that with us, Julie?
I'm sorry, I was doing something else.
The meeting that you all had with the legislator, if you want to just share that. It was written in the,
The thing we went to last night. So last night, Matt and I both attended a interfaith iftar dinner that was hosted by Salman and Nima Bujani. And they invited, it was as a, to break the fast for the Ramadan. Thank you. But they invited faith leaders of 8 different faiths, Christianity being one, large faith with lots of, denominations there. But and they had the faith leaders just say a few words, and they did an explanation of breaking the fast for the Muslims, and it was sponsored by several other political leaders, including Colin Allred. He was there and he spoke. And the room was full. How many do you think were there? Probably 200?
Yeah, I'd say 200. They said they had 40 elected officials. So.
No, it was at a place in
India
Irving.
101 in Irving, yeah.
Yeah, in Irving.
In Irving. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a great opportunity. Matt and I were seated at separate tables on the opposite sides of the room from one another. And I really got to meet some people, some elected officials I'd never met before, and really had some great conversations, and it was really an uplifting night. Not like anything I've ever been to before. Of course, it was Salman Bujani, so he's very outside of the box in his thinking, and it was run by his children. Yeah. It was really a very nice event, and we really got a lot of exposure.
Yeah, they did a good job, and his kids did a great job in seeing everything, so it was a lot of fun.
Has anybody else had any recent meetings or conversations with their?
Well, we sat down, Matt and Joe and I sat down at Bujani's office about, 4 weeks ago, and had a conversation about funding, a pretty pointed conversation about funding, and some ideas of things that we can collaborate on together and work on together. So that will be ongoing, but that was the start of that conversation, and there were a couple of people from his team there as well. And then, I don't know if I mentioned this to you all before, but I attended a meeting at Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne's office, that she invited board members and superintendents from all around her district, and there were probably 20 of us in the room. And she started off by talking about how this is a federal level conversation and there is no money. And then we all very pointedly explained to her that, no, there is money for special education that you're not giving to us, and that we're not fully funded in special education. And what was interesting about the room was there were board members from differing types of boards on the sort of, I don't want to say political spectrum, because boards are not supposed to be political, but there were some boards in the room that were very highly politicized. So even though those boards were there, they were singing the same tune to her when it came to special ed funding and special ed growth. And like, you could see her eyes get real big, and she was like, wait, you're all saying the same thing? And she would ask some probing questions, and even the, South Lakes of the world would say, absolutely, this is a problem. And so that was I thought, very good conversation.
She had been misinformed, sounds like.
I don't know that she was misinformed. I think because I had spoken to her multiple times about, and you were with me one time when we spoke to her about special ed funding. But I think when she saw that it was a universal issue, it took on new meaning. Yeah.
That's one of the tough things whenever you're dealing with someone at the federal level. If they don't sit on that committee, they don't really pay much attention to what you're dealing with. So, they all say, "Oh, I talked to Ms. Fox about that."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and she had called this meeting and called it an education roundtable. But I don't think she expected to get the education that she got from the board members that were there. So it was, I thought, a very good time spent with her.
And I know you mentioned that you're having a meeting not that, I think your meeting still would be informative for us, even though it's not one of us necessarily, but I think I would like to have you talk about that.
Yeah, Deanne and I are meeting with Senator Kelly Hancock tomorrow. And so, again, special education is one of the primary things we want to talk about. And then also talk about the funding of the schools. I mean, there's a lot of concern about schools, and our schools in our area are highly successful. And I know there's been some concerns, and I've heard them talk about failing schools. Well, that's not here. And we need to be funded here. And so we need to make sure that the voucher bills or any other bill is not holding up the funding, because we're not going to be able to maintain the great things we have if we're not funded. I mean, and you can see what's happening to other districts. We did some advanced planning, so we're in much better shape, obviously, but that has a lifespan on it if we're not funded. And so we're going to talk about that.
I don't know how many of us, and I'm not going to say I have done so, but I know we talk about it's important for us to invite them, our elected officials, to our schools so they can see what's going on. So that's something I would like for us to try to do. I know we don't have much time left.
So I haven't extended the invitation beyond Representative Boujani, but I have sent him the details about HEB reads.
Oh, good. That's a great idea.
So I can certainly invite others. I also have been having an ongoing conversation with Pat Hardy from the SBOE. Unfortunately, Pat was defeated in her primary, but she's sitting in the office until November. So I'm continuing to have conversations with her. So, yeah.
That's a good idea. If we could reach out to our assigned elected official and at least invite them to HB Reads, I think that would be a great idea. Yeah, too. Thank you for saying that, Julie. It's a great idea. Anything else you want to add, Fred?
I think you covered it. I was going to add, but you went ahead and tackled it. In addition to reflecting backwards, reflecting forward as far as just make sure we document who we talk to as it comes up.
And document on here,
Yeah.
please. So we have record.
all right. Thank you, Goal Team 3. 13.04 plus Delta for extra mile reception.
All right, yeah, I will collect those from you, but if you all could give me any plus deltas, and just please make sure you label them so I can separate them as I review them, but from the extra mile reception at LD Bell.
I did not get to attend that because I was at the TASB board meeting. Does anybody want to give me a quick rundown how it went?
Oh, great to me.
Oh, that's good.
Actually, I did. So he's making fun of me.
Oh, no.
They were right there. I caught on my coat and
Oh.
yanked him right on the floor.
any wrong words.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That is good.
That's a first. How many years has it been?
8 years.
Yes. So a few people got, awards with some stage dirt on them. So,
Oh, well. There are worse things that could happen.
yeah, sorry, all you.
And
I don't got those.
Influence the plus deltas, but we did get, just from my observation, that time in the cafeteria, people seem to be having a really good time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree, that was definitely a plus. The food was good, great conversation, the way that we did that is really good, beforehand.
Yeah, and it was a good long time. It wasn't rushed. So they had the food out by 5:30 probably, and people hung out till it started at 7. So
Great.
It was,
Oh, and as we were shooing them in to start, I mean, there were some like, I'm just gonna stay right here and eat. I mean, it was
yeah.
good.
I mean, we still have the same issue that we've always had of people get their award and they leave. And so I don't know that there's much we can do about that.
That was gonna be a problem that night regardless because of weather, and we kind of anticipated that. There was big weather moving in, and so we anticipated regardless of who went first, they might be leaving.
And we could write it down, but I remember now that he said that, we had discussion of ideas to fix, reordering it as opposed to being in the same order, and then possibly, I can't remember now who I was having a discussion with, having some sort of giveaway or announcement at the end.
Well, we talked about that, but I think the thing we gotta talk about, are we trying too hard to keep everyone there? I think some people.
It's a school night, for goodness
Yeah,
sake.
I think some people
Well, that's true.
are there with
Yeah,
their
it
kids.
wasn't
I think they're going-
disruptive though, them leaving to me.
No.
No, just it was maybe not as many people cheering by the time you got to the end.
But if we, if we change the order every year, then.
That's an easy solution that would probably change.
Great idea.
Yeah, just everyone gets their chance to be first.
That's
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Correct.
And I don't know how we go out and remind people to put in, extra mile awards. Certain categories were really underrepresented compared to previous years, and I didn't know, we have a new transportation director, and we didn't have very many transportation people this year, so I don't know if he just didn't know or if the staff doesn't know. I mean, there were some, but not nearly as many as we normally get.
Mark that down though, because that's something, because again, he's not making those recommendations. The same people that make those, that shouldn't have caused that, or I wouldn't have thought it would, but that's something we can follow up with our candidates.
Well, it seems like it's usually one of our biggest categories, and I think we had 5 or 6, and it's usually 20.
If those recommendations usually coming from the assistant principals out at the bus loops and. All right.
I'm trying to think of some more. We put on here, Joe was not well.
Yeah, I wasn't.
We miss him.
That's 2 years in a row that my meeting in Austin has fallen on the same night. It's a bummer.
Okay, so let me give you the pluses. Okay, good food, very organized. And again, changed with the order, so that's a delta too. So, food was good. Oh, love the walk-up music.
Yeah, that was good.
Was that Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way to go, Josh.
We need to find a way to get, here we go. More crossing guard applicants. I think we had 2 or 3, and I think we only had 2 the year before. And that, said possibly ask PTA, because they're the ones that are gonna know. That's a good idea.
That is a good idea.
Move the table on stage back so there's more room. Yeah, and that was something that I think Deanne was talking about, so we're gonna.
I was trying to keep myself away so they wouldn't fall off the stage. It was
Yeah.
close on some of them.
Yeah.
The screen though is the problem.
Is that what it is?
And then remind the admin to turn in their recommendations.
Even though the screen, but you could have moved, the table could have gone under the screen a little bit further.
Yeah, there's some.
Get a bigger table.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's gonna change over time too.
yeah, we don't need, we need to make sure that we have room to do what we need to do, or they could possibly get knocked over.
Again.
Or let's just build a new stage.
Yes. Let's tear down the whole school and build a new stage.
You know, and it goes, we're used to our stuff after going out to Chisholm Trail for one act play and seeing the size of their stage, and then you hear the reports that our stage is undersized, but when that's the only stage you know, it looks fine. And then you come back and you're like, our stage is undersized. Yeah. So, but having that additional space.
You could move the board to the other side and put the table of trophies next to the speaker,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Oh,
Well, yeah, just know that has to change, because I was so scared people were gonna fall off the stage.
Oh, you got all that? All right, we'll document that.
All right,
And then
so
me,
if there's
you
no
can
more
have to
plus
go.
deltas, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're adjourned.
Fred seconded.
Fred.
Fred seconded.
Who called it? Julie.
I think Julie.
Okay, I'm gonna get the stuff out of the other office while you shut down.
Okay.